He told me I should forgive him for cheating, because all men do it, but instead I showed him what happens when push a loyal woman too far. My name is Sarah, and 6 months ago I was the kind of woman who rolled my eyes at cheaters. Who said things like, I could never and just leave if we're unhappy. I was loyal, stupidly, blindly loyal to a man who didn't deserve it. But I'm getting ahead of. Let me start with the moment everything changed. The moment I heard those words that would destroy everything I thought I knew about. Sarah, need to just get over it. All men cheat, it's biology. Mark said this to me while I was holding his phone, staring at months of messages with his coworker Jessica. Months of can't wait to see. And my wife doesn't understand me and worse things I won't repeat here. We'd been married 3 years, together for 7. I found out on a Tuesday. Like most affairs, it was how I discovered it. His phone buzzed during dinner, and he was in the bathroom. The notification preview showed enough to make my world tilt sideways. When he came back, I was already scrolling. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone steady. 7 years of trust, gone in 30 seconds of reading. How long? I asked without looking. He didn't even try to deny it. That should have been my first clue about who I was really married to. About 4 months. 4 months. While I was planning our anniversary trip. While I was talking about starting a family. While I was working extra hours to help pay for the house we'd just bought. I need space to think. I told him. That's when he said it, the line that broke something fundamental inside me. Sarah, need to just get over it. All men cheat. It's biology. Women are supposed to be the forgiving ones. That's how marriage works. I stared at him. This man I'd loved since college. This man I'd supported through law school while working 2 jobs. This man who'd promised to love and honor me just 3 years ago in front of everyone we cared about. All men, I repeated. The successful ones do. Ask any married woman, they all know. They just don't talk about it. I felt something inside my chest. Not just love, something deeper. Respect. For him and weirdly, for how had I been so naive. But then something else started growing in that dead space. Something darker. So in mind, I should just accept this, pretend it never happened. If wanna stay married, yes. Jessica means nothing. It's just stress relief, like I was some kind of emotional mate he came home to after using another woman for fun. I handed him back his phone. I need to think. Don't be dramatic, Sarah, this is normal stuff. Grow. After 7 years of growing meant staying faithful while he played around. That night I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about his words. About how casual he'd been. How annoyed he seemed that I was upset, like I was the problem. By morning, something had shifted. If this was really how the world worked, if loyalty was just something women were supposed to give while men took whatever they wanted, then maybe I'd been playing by the wrong rules. I started small. Downloaded dating apps while he was at work. Just to test his theory about how marriage really worked. Within hours I had dozens of matches. Messages from men calling me beautiful, interesting, worth their time. When was the last time Mark had said any of those things? I told I was just looking, just seeing what was out there, just proving to that I had options too. But I knew I was lying. I picked someone safe, David. A divorced dad who seemed kind in his messages, who asked about my day and remembered details from our conversations, who made me feel like I mattered. We met for coffee. Just coffee. I told it wasn't technically cheating if we just talked. But when he looked at me like I was the only woman in the room, when he listened to me complain about work without checking his phone, when he said, husband isn't if he doesn't see how amazing are. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Wanted we in the parking lot, gentle, tentative, like we were both afraid of what we were doing. I drove home with my heart racing and my lips still tingling. Mark was on the couch watching TV, scrolling through his phone, probably texting Jessica. How was book club? He asked without looking. I'd told him I was at book club. The lie came so easily I scared. Fine, I said. And just like that, I became everything I used to judge, everything I swore I'd never be. But in that moment, sitting there watching my cheating husband pretend to care about my book club, I didn't feel guilty. I felt powerful. That was my first mistake. Thinking cheating would make me feel better instead of making everything infinitely worse. But I was about to learn that when break to someone else, don't get to choose which pieces stay broken. 3 weeks. That's how long I managed to convince I was just exploring my options. David and I met 6 more times. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into long walks in the park across town where no one would recognize me. Walks turned into sitting in his car talking for hours about everything Mark never wanted to hear about. I told it was emotional support. That I deserved kindness after what Mark had done to me. That this was just friendship with someone who actually valued me. But I knew what I was really doing. I was falling for someone who wasn't my husband. And worse, I was planning to do something about it. The moment everything changed happened on a Thursday. Mark came home late again, claiming he'd been working. His shirt smelled like Jessica's perfume. The same perfume I'd smelled on him for months without putting it together. Working late, I asked, setting his dinner on the table. Yeah, big case, know how it is. I knew exactly how it was. He was still seeing her, still lying to my face, still expecting me to play the role of the understanding wife while he treated our marriage like a joke. That's when I made the decision that would everything. I texted David. Are free tonight? Always for. Okay. I need to sleep. We met at a hotel. Not somewhere cheap or somewhere nice, because somehow in my twisted mind, that made it more acceptable. Like the thread count of the sheets would make the betrayal less. I won't give details about what happened. Not because I'm protecting anyone's privacy, but because I can't. Even now, 6 months later, thinking about that night makes me physically sick. Not because it was bad. Because it was good. Because for 2 hours, I felt cherished and beautiful and like I mattered to someone. Because David whispered things to me that Mark hadn't said in years. Because I felt alive in a way that terrified me. And because the entire time, part of me was thinking, now we're even. That's the part that haunts me. Not the physical betrayal, but the coldness of it, the calculation. I wasn't swept away by passion or making a mistake in a moment of weakness. I was keeping score. I drove home at midnight with my hair fixed and my makeup touched, practicing lies in case Mark was awake. But he wasn't. He was asleep, probably exhausted from his evening with Jessica. I showered and slipped into bed next to my husband, and felt nothing. Not guilt, not regret, not even satisfaction. Just emptiness where my conscience used to be. The scary part, how easy it became after that. Dave and I started meeting twice a week. I got better at lying, better at covering my tracks, better at compartmentalizing my into the wife who made dinner and did laundry, and the woman who felt desired and important. Mark noticed I seemed happier. See, I told, get over it, he said one morning, kissing my cheek before work. This is how mature couples handle things. I wanted to scream or laugh. Or tell him exactly why I was so happy lately. Instead, I smiled and made his coffee and played the role of the wife who'd learned to accept her husband's infidelity. But the universe has a way of making sure secrets don't stay buried forever. It was Mark's sister who saw me first. Lisa, who I'd always gotten along with, who'd been in our wedding party. She spotted David and me at a restaurant 2 towns over, holding hands across the table like teenagers. She didn't confront me that day, she called instead 3 days later. Sarah, we need to talk. My went cold. About what? About why we're having dinner with a man who isn't my brother. I could have lied. Could have said it was work, or an old friend, or anything. But I was so tired of lying. So tired of pretending everything was fine when my entire had become a performance. How long have known about Jessica? I asked instead. Silence. What are talking about? Mark's coworker. The one he's been seeing for 4 months. The one he told me all wives just accept because all men cheat. More silence. Then, quietly, I didn't know. Well, now do. And now know why I stopped caring about being the perfect wife. Sarah, this isn't the answer. According to brother, it's exactly the answer. This is just how marriage works, remember? But even as I said it, I knew she was right. This wasn't an answer. This was just me drowning in someone else's pool instead of swimming to shore. Are you gonna tell him? I asked. I don't know. This is complicated. Complicated. That's what my had become. A web of lies and betrayal so tangled I couldn't see a way out that didn't destroy everything. That night, I looked at in the bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. When had I become someone who could lie so easily? When had I stopped feeling guilty about betraying the man I'd promised to love forever, even if he'd betrayed me first? When had I become exactly the kind of person I used to judge? David texted me while I was getting ready for bed. Seemed distracted today. Everything okay? And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just cheating on Mark anymore. I was lying to David too, leading him to believe I was going to leave my husband, that we had a future together, when really I was just using him to feel better about. I was everyone. Mark, David, even Lisa, who now had to carry the weight of knowing her brother's marriage was a disaster. But I still couldn't stop. Because stopping meant facing the truth about what I'd become, and I wasn't ready for that conversation with yet. I texted David back. Just tired. See tomorrow. Can't wait. I put my phone down and went to bed next to my sleeping husband, both of us living lies so elaborate we'd forgotten what the truth looked like. The worst part, I still thought I was winning. I still thought I was in control. I still thought the consequences would only mark. The end came on a Saturday morning in March. Not with a dramatic confrontation or a movie-worthy scene. Just with a phone call that shattered what was left of my carefully constructed house of lies. Mark was in the shower. I was making breakfast, humming while I flipped pancakes like some twisted version of a happy housewife. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. Hello. Is this Sarah Martinez? Yes, who's this? This is David's ex-wife, Rebecca. The spatula fell from my hand. I knew David was divorced, but we'd never talked about his ex in detail. He'd said it was amicable, that they co-parented their daughter well. What he hadn't mentioned was that Rebecca was a private investigator. I think we need to talk, she continued, her voice perfectly calm, professional, about relationship with my ex-husband and what it's doing to my daughter, their daughter, Emma. Sweet, shy Emma who David showed me pictures of constantly. Emma who was starting to ask why Daddy was always working when she came to stay with him. Emma who I'd convinced wouldn't be affected by any of this. I don't know what we're talking about, I whispered, moving away from the kitchen in case Mark could hear. Sarah, I have photos, credit card receipts, hotel records, I know everything. What I want to know is if understand what destroying. My legs gave out. I sank onto the living room couch, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might stop. David is Emma's hero. Rebecca continued. She's 8 years old, and she thinks her father is the most honest man in the world. Do you know what it's going to do to her when she finds out he's been lying to her for months about where he goes twice a week? 8 years old, the same age I was when my parents got divorced. When I learned that adults could be liars and love wasn't enough to keep families together. I never wanted to anyone, I managed. But we're destroying a little girl's faith in her father. We're helping a man lie to his child. And for what? Because husband is a cheater, she knew. Of course she knew. Private investigators don't make calls without having all the facts first. I know about Mark and his coworker, she said. I know this started as revenge. But Emma doesn't know any of that. All she knows is that Daddy keeps breaking promises because he's too busy with his work friend to pick her from school. The pancakes were burning. I could smell them from the living room, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. What do you want? I asked. I want to disappear from my daughters, today. Right now before this gets even uglier. What do you mean uglier? I mean, husband doesn't know yet, does he? But he'd be very interested to learn that while he was dealing with his own guilt about his affair, his wife was busy having one of her own. My turn to ice. Wouldn't. I will if I have to. I will down and tire to protect my child. Is that what want? A custody battle where affair gets dragged through court documents. Name in public records as the woman who helped destroy a father-daughter relationship. I thought about Mark, about our families. About my job where I worked with children and families. About that I'd built that could be destroyed by public scandal. Ain't it today, Rebecca said. Clean, complete, no contact, or I make some phone calls that will more than just marriage. The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone while smoke filled the house and Mark's voice called from upstairs asking what was burning. That's when everything I'd been suppressing for months hit me at once. The guilt. The shame. The realization that I'd become exactly the kind of person who hurts children to make herself feel better. Emma, 8-year-old Emma, who was learning that her father was a liar because I needed to feel wanted. I called David immediately. Sarah! Want to meet for lunch? We need to talk. Now? What's wrong? Sound upset. Ex-wife knows. About us. About everything? Silence. What did she say? I told him about the call. About the threats. About Emma asking questions he couldn't answer honestly. More silence. Then quietly, she's right, no? What? Rebecca. She's right, I've been lying to Emma for months, telling her I'm working when I'm with, missing her recital because we had plans. She asked me last week if I was going to disappear like her friend's dad did when he got a new girlfriend. My heart shattered, not for me but for a little girl I'd never met who was losing faith in the one parent she trusted most. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I am too. We both are. But sorry doesn't fix what we've done. We agreed to end it. Right then over the phone. No goodbye meeting, no closure, no explanation beyond the truth we'd been selfish, and innocent people were paying the price. I hung and realized I was crying. Not for losing David but for Emma. For the damage I'd helped cause to a child who'd never done anything wrong. Mark came downstairs to find me sobbing on the couch surrounded by smoke from the burned breakfast. What happened? I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and realized that somewhere in the last few months while I was busy getting revenge, he'd changed too. He looked tired, guilty, like he'd been carrying his own weight of shame. Mark, we need to talk. About what? About everything. About Jessica. About what we've done to each other. About whether there's anything left to save. He sat down slowly. Sarah, I know we're still seeing her. And I know I haven't been at book club. We stared at each other across the ruins of our marriage. Two people who'd loved each other once, before we'd decided that each other was more important than healing. How did we get here? He asked. Told me all men cheat and I should just accept it. So I decided to see what happened when women stopped accepting things. And I learned that being cruel doesn't make feel better. It just makes cruel. We talked for 6 hours that day. Really talked, for the first time in months, about his affair, about mine. About the lies we'd been telling ourselves and each other. About whether two people who'd betrayed each other so completely could ever trust again. The answer, it turned out, was no. We agreed to divorce, quietly, amicably, with therapists and lawyers instead of screaming matches. We sold the house, split everything down the middle, and walked away from 7 years like it had never happened. But the consequences followed me everywhere. David's daughter Emma did lose faith in her father. Rebecca made sure I knew that when she sent me a final message. Emma asked David if he was going to leave her like her friend's daddy left. Congratulations, helped break an 8-year-old's heart. Word got around our small town. People whispered about the perfect couple who'd both been cheaters. I lost friends who couldn't look at me the same way. My family was disappointed but not surprised. Apparently I'd been broadcasting my unhappiness for longer than I'd realized. The worst part was the loneliness, not the kind feel when are alone, but the kind feel when realize become someone don't recognize. Someone who could justify a child because her own feelings were first. I started therapy, real therapy. Not the kind where complain about spouse for an hour. The kind where have to look at the choices made and figure out why made them. Turns out, I'd been so focused on proving Mark wrong about women being forgiving that I'd forgotten what forgiveness actually meant. It didn't mean accepting bad behavior. It meant choosing not to let someone else's cruelty turn cruel too. I'd failed that test spectacularly. These days I live in a small apartment across town. I see a therapist twice a week and volunteer with kids who've been affected by divorce. I'm trying to rebuild into someone I can respect again. Mark married Jessica 8 months after our divorce was final. I heard they're expecting a baby. I hope they're happy. I really do. I hope they learned something from the wreckage of our marriage that helps them do better. David moved across the country for a fresh start. Rebecca made sure Emma got custody rights that protected her from future work friends. I hope someday Emma forgives her father for the lies. I hope she learns that adults can make terrible mistakes and still be worth loving. But I'll never know, because I don't get updates on the lives I help damage. That's part of the punishment for becoming the kind of person who justifies children. 6 months ago, I thought I was showing Mark what happened when pushed a loyal woman too far. Instead, I showed what happens when let betrayal turn into someone never wanted to be.